Hey guys, tonight we are going on a little adventure in applied architectural analysis. We're going to explore the ultimate security flaw in a medieval castle, a vulnerability so profound and so disgusting that no one ever thought to guard it. We're going to learn how to identify and exploit the single moment of the day when even the most powerful king is at his most utterly and completely defenseless. With our modern squeamishness, most of us probably wouldn't survive the planning phase of this little operation, let alone the execution. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd also love to know where you're tuning in from tonight, and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see this community assembling from every corner of the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand in the shadows of the great hall, a silent, resentful observer in a world of loud, cheerful loyalty. The air is thick with the smell of roasting meat, spilled wine, and the musky scent of the hounds sleeping by the great hearth. At the high table, on his carved wooden throne, sits your king. He is laughing, his face flushed with wine, a leg of mutton glistening with grease in his hand. To everyone else in this hall, he is the center of the universe, the font of all justice and power. To you, he is a festering wound on the kingdom, and the source of all your private misery. Perhaps he stole your family's ancestral lands and gave them to a more flattering courtier. Perhaps his foolish foreign policy led to a disastrous war that cost your brother his life. Or perhaps you simply see him for what he is, a weak, arrogant, and incompetent ruler, a man whose vanity will be the ruin of you all. Whatever the reason, a cold, hard stone of hatred has been growing in your gut for months, and tonight it has solidified into a single treasonous idea. The king must die. But how? You look at him now, surrounded by his personal guard, their hands resting on the hilts of their swords. Every cup he drinks from is tasted first by a servant. Every plate of food is sampled for poison. The castle itself is a masterpiece of defense, a fortress of thick stone walls, iron-bound doors, and watchful sentries. A direct assault is suicide. A subtle poison is next to impossible. The king seems utterly untouchable, a god within his own stone heaven. As you stand there, your mind racing through impossible scenarios, an old story drifts up from the dark corners of your memory. It is a story whispered by old soldiers and cynical courtiers, a piece of grim historical gossip about another king, in another land, more than a century ago. The story of the English King Edmund, a man they called Ironside for his great valor in battle. For all his strength on the battlefield, the story goes, he was brought down in the most undignified way imaginable. An assassin, it is said, hid himself in the filth of the cesspit beneath the king's private privy, and as the king sat down to relieve himself, the killer thrust a sharp dagger upwards, fatally wounding him at his most vulnerable and private moment. You know it may just be a story, a foul rumor spread by the followers of his rival, Canute the Great, who took the throne after Edmund's convenient death. Historians and chroniclers fiercely debate the truth behind such lurid tales. Were they factual accounts of ingenious, if disgusting, treachery? Or were they politically motivated propaganda, designed to posthumously humiliate a defeated enemy, to stain his memory with an aura of indignity and foolishness, and to legitimize the reign of the man who followed? Fact or fiction, the idea takes root in your mind. It is vile. It is disgusting. It is utterly without honor. And it is, you realize with a jolt, utterly, horrifyingly plausible. But the thought brings with it a cold sweat of a different kind. You are a nobleman. Years ago, you knelt before this very king, placed your hands in his, and swore a sacred oath of fealty. You swore on the bones of a saint to be his loyal vassal, to defend him with your own life, if need be. To plot against him is not just the crime of murder. It is the far graver spiritual crime of oath-breaking. It is a betrayal of a promise witnessed by God himself. Even if you were to succeed, even if you are never caught, you know with absolute certainty that your soul would be damned for all eternity. It is a high price to pay. But as you look at the king again, laughing at some crude joke, his mouth greasy with fat, the cold stone of hatred in your gut tells you it is a price you are willing to pay. The damnation of your own soul is worth the salvation of the kingdom. The plan, in all its foul and treacherous glory, begins to form. You will not challenge the king with an army he would surely crush. You will not try to outwit his poison tasters. You will not attempt to scale his high stone walls. You will attack the castle through its most overlooked, most unguarded, and most fundamental vulnerability. You will turn the king's own daily, human needs against him. Your mission has begun. And the first step is to become an expert in the most intimate and secret routines of your target. Your hatred now has a focus. The vague, simmering resentment has cooled and hardened into a purposeful, analytical calm. You are no longer just a disgruntled courtier. You have become a spy in your own home, and your mission is to deconstruct the life of your king, searching for the single fleeting moment of vulnerability you need. You begin to watch, to listen, to observe. You learn to fade into the background, to become part of the tapestry on the wall, a silent shadow in a crowded room. You quickly realize that the key to your plan does not lie in tracking the king himself. His movements are too public, too well guarded. The key lies in tracking the king's own shadow, one specific man whose proximity to the monarch is so intimate, so constant, that he is almost invisible. This is the man who holds the obscure but incredibly powerful position known, in some courts, as the groom of the stool. He is not a lowly servant. He is a man like you, of noble birth, likely a younger son of a good family, sent to court to make his way. And he has made his way to the very center of power, though his official duties are the most private and undignified imaginable. He is the guardian of the king's body, the curator of his majesty's bodily functions. You see him always within a few paces of the king, his expression a perfect blend of deference and quiet confidence. You study his duties, which are a strange mix of the menial and the medical. It is he who provides the king with the silver ewer and basin for the ritual washing of his hands before a meal. It is he who has custody of the close stool, a padded chest that is, in essence, a portable throne containing a ceramic chamber pot, ensuring the king's comfort wherever he may be in the castle. He is responsible for its cleanliness, its placement, and for discreetly having it emptied by lesser servants. But his role goes far beyond that. Because he attends the king in these private moments, he is also the king's primary health monitor. He has a quiet, daily conversation with the royal physician, reporting on the king's digestion, his humors, the very output of his body, all of which are seen as critical indicators of his overall health and well-being. He is a de facto medical advisor, and because of the secrets he is privy to, the king's most trusted confidant. He holds no great office of state, like the chancellor or the treasurer, yet you have seen powerful dukes and bishops seek him out, trying to gain his favor, hoping he might whisper their name into the king's ear during an unguarded moment. Court historians debate the true source of the groom's immense and subtle power. Was it simply his constant proximity to the king, allowing him to be a gatekeeper of private access and an overhearer of state secrets? Or was it the profound and unique psychological bond created by the intimacy of his role, a trust given to the one man, who regularly saw the king not as a divine, untouchable figure on a throne, but as a vulnerable human being with mundane earthly and sometimes undignified needs? To you, the source of his power is irrelevant. You only care about the routine it reveals. You watch him like a hawk. You learn his rhythms, and by extension, the king's. You notice that every day, shortly after the morning meal, the groom will give a subtle, almost imperceptible nod to the king. The king will rise, and the groom will follow him to his private chambers. The timing is predictable, almost clockwork. You also begin to track where these moments occur. Sometimes the king uses the portable close stool within his bedchamber, but at other times he prefers to use the permanent privy, the one built directly into the thick stone of the castle's outer wall. This room is called the garderobe, and it is this piece of architecture that holds the key to your entire plan. You begin to notice a new pattern. On nights when there is a great feast, when the king drinks a large quantity of strong wine, he often retires not to his bedchamber, but to a smaller, more comfortable private sitting room, a solar, to continue drinking with his closest companions. And this solar, you discover, has its own private, attached garderobe. It is used infrequently, only on these occasions. It is a predictable destination, following a predictable event. After weeks of patient, silent observation, you have it. You have the two pieces of intelligence upon which everything else will rest. You have the where, the solar's garderobe, and you have the when after a feast night. The vague, insane, and disgusting idea you conceived in the Great Hall is beginning to feel like a real executable military strategy. Your intelligence gathering is complete. The next phase is to survey the battlefield itself. You must examine the architecture of the garderobe, not from the inside, but from the outside. You must go and study the castle's most profound and disgusting weakness. Your reconnaissance begins. The intelligence-gathering phase inside the castle walls is over. Now you must become a student of its exterior. You must walk its perimeter, not as a courtier, but as a military engineer, looking for a breach. But you are not looking for a weakness in the main defenses. The towering gatehouse, the thick curtain walls, the arrow slits in the turrets, these are for fools and armies. You are looking for a different kind of vulnerability, one hidden in plain sight, a feature so mundane and so disgusting that it is completely overlooked as a security flaw. On a gray, overcast afternoon, you walk a wide circle around the castle, keeping to the edge of the surrounding woods. From here, you can see the castle as a whole, a great man-made mountain of stone. You ignore the proud battlements and the strong towers. Your eyes are scanning the flat surfaces of the walls for what you are looking for. Small, stone structures that jut out from the face of the wall like little boxes glued to the side of a cliff. You spot several of them at various heights. These are the garderobes, the castle's toilets. Below each one, you can see a dark, greenish-black stain running down the stonework, a permanent, foul trail marking the path of the waste as it falls to the moat or the cesspit below. It is the castle's excretory system, made shockingly visible on its outer skin. Your heart beats a little faster. This is real. You continue your circuit of the castle, your eyes now trained, until you locate the specific wall of the private solar, the king's drinking room. And there it is. High up on the third floor, a single modest garderobe juts out, its chute descending down a quiet and relatively unobserved section of the wall that empties into a stagnant, scum-covered part of the moat. It is perfect, isolated, predictable. You stand there, concealed by the trees, and you think of the strange, delicate name for this crude feature of architecture, the garderobe. It is a French word, and you know it means, quite literally, a wardrobe, a place for storing robes. The name is not a joke. It is a statement of its secondary, and almost equally important, function. The ammonia fumes that rise from the decomposing waste in the moat below are a powerful and pungent deterrent to pests. You know that the Queen's own ladies-in-waiting will often hang Her Majesty's expensive, fur-lined cloaks and fine woolen gowns within the small privy chamber. They believe, and they are not wrong, that the foul, sharp air will kill the moths, the fleas, and the lice that would otherwise ruin the priceless garments. The castle's toilet is also its fumigation closet, a strange, queasy marriage of high fashion and human filth. You stare up at the base of the long, dark, stained chute where it meets the moat. From here, It just looks like a dark, narrow opening in the stone, no bigger than a badger's set. And you realize, with a cold certainty, that this is the most profound security flaw in the entire fortress. It is an unguarded tunnel that leads directly from the outside world into the heart of the king's private chambers. You wonder if the castle's architect, the master mason who designed this fortress, ever saw this as a risk. Castle historians and archaeologists debate the defensive thinking behind the guardrabe. Was the chute deliberately constructed to be narrow and difficult to climb, its inner surface kept slick with filth? Were there sometimes iron grates or grills fitted at the top or bottom to prevent this very kind of infiltration? Or was the entire concept of a man willingly choosing to immerse himself in the castle, his own collected waste, and then climb upwards through a cramped, lightless, suffocating tunnel of filth, considered so insane, so far beyond the bounds of human desperation or hatred, that the guardrabe chute was, in effect, its own most powerful defense? Who would be mad enough to even try? You would. The physical challenge will be immense. You will have to cross the moat in the dead of night, find the opening, and then begin the climb. You will need a rope, perhaps, and a great deal of upper body strength. But the true challenge, you know, will be psychological. It will be a journey into the absolute nadir of human experience, an ascent through a vertical sewer. You will have to overcome every natural instinct of revulsion, every fiber of your being that will scream at you to turn back. But your resolve is like iron. The indignity of the method you feel is a fitting tribute to the indignity the king has shown your family and your kingdom. You will turn the castle's own filth against its master. Your reconnaissance is complete. You have identified your target. You have discovered the king's routine. And now you have found your secret passage, your disgusting, unguarded doorway into the heart of power. The insane idea has become a concrete architectural plan. You know what you must do. But to do it properly, you must first understand the history and the context of the very thing you seek to exploit. You must become an expert in the evolution of the toilet. Your plan is set. Your route has been chosen. But a wise man does not simply attack. He studies his enemy, even if that enemy is a stone shaft filled with filth. Before you commit to the physical act, you commit to the intellectual one. You must understand the history and the science of the very thing you seek to exploit. You must become a scholar of the privy. Your study begins with the old tales, the legends of the Roman giants who built the crumbling ruins that dot the landscape. They were a people, you have heard, who mastered stone, and more importantly, who mastered water. You try to imagine their great city of Rome, a place not of muddy lanes and overflowing cesspits, but of constant, flowing water brought from distant mountains on the backs of colossal stone aqueducts. In this city of water, they had a different approach to the problem of human waste. You think of their public latrines, which were not dark, lonely closets, but grand social halls. They were often beautiful rooms, lined with marble, their walls decorated with paintings. A long marble bench would run along the walls, and carved into this bench would be a series of keyhole-shaped openings, sometimes dozens of them all in a row. There were no stalls, no partitions, no privacy. A Roman man would simply take his place beside his neighbor, conducting business or carrying on a philosophical debate while attending to his own. In front of their feet, a channel of continuously running water would flow, a small, clean stream to carry everything away. And for personal cleaning, you have heard travelers speak of their strange customs. In the center of the room, there would be buckets of salt water or vinegar, and in them would be soaking azale spongum. It was a simple, ingenious, and to your mind, horrifyingly intimate device. A natural sea sponge, soft and absorbent, attached to the end of a wooden stick. This tool was communal. A Romain would use the shared sponge on a stick, rinse it in the running water, and place it back in the bucket for the next man to use. This network of public latrines was all connected to a greater, hidden system. An underground river, a man-made marvel of engineering called the Cloaca Maxima, the Great Sewer. It was a vast, vaulted tunnel of stone that ran beneath the entire city, collecting all the waste and flushing it out into the Tiber River. The sheer scale of the concept is almost beyond your comprehension. A secret, tamed river of filth, flowing silently beneath the feet of millions. You imagine this lost city of constant flowing water, of marble toilets and communal sponges, and you marvel at its genius. But then a thought occurs to you. Archaeologists and sanitation historians debate the true public health impact of these impressive systems. While they efficiently removed waste from the streets, making the city appear clean, did they really make it healthier? By collecting all the city's filth and then dumping it raw and concentrated directly into the river that supplied much of the downstream population with its drinking and washing water, did they simply create new, more efficient vectors for waterborne diseases like cholera and typhoid? Was the great Roman sewer a true sanitation system, or just a very elaborate and beautiful way to poison your neighbors? But after the Romans fell, their great empire crumbled. The aqueducts were broken, the great sewers clogged and were forgotten, and the immense knowledge of hydraulic engineering was lost. The world reverted to simpler, more direct methods of waste disposal. The chamber pot emptied into the street, a shallow cesspit in the backyard. And then came the invention that you are so keenly interested in, the garderobe. You see it not as a step backward from the Romans, but as a brilliant, pragmatic innovation for a new, waterless world. It was a solution for a lord who desired privacy and cleanliness. It used the most reliable force in the universe, gravity, to solve a problem. It was a small private room that, through a simple stone chute, moved the waste from the Lord's chamber, outside the walls and far away from his own nose. It was, in essence, a vertical single-user sewer, a masterpiece of medieval problem-solving. You compare the two technologies in your mind. The Roman system was public, social, and water-based. The medieval system is private, isolating, and gravity-based. And in that evolution, you see the flaw you need. The Roman latrine, with its constant flow of people and water, would be an impossible place for an assassin to hide. But the king's garderobe, because it is private, because it is isolated, because it is used by only one man, it has created a predictable routine and a secret, unguarded passage. The technological advancement of the personal toilet, you realize with a cold sense of irony, is precisely what will make your king vulnerable. Your historical study is complete. You understand the principles, the evolution, and the specific design philosophy of your target. You see the garderobe not as a primitive toilet, but as a flawed masterpiece of engineering. And its flaws are about to become your greatest assets. Your historical studies have provided you with context, but an assassin cannot operate on theory alone. You need to understand the specific physical anatomy of your chosen target. You must get inside the Solar's privy chamber to see the layout for yourself. This requires a new level of audacity. You are no longer a distant observer. You must now become a trespasser. Under the pretext of delivering a message to a courtier who you know to be in the king's company, you manage to gain entry to the Solar. It is a richly appointed room, full of tapestries and fine furniture, but you have no interest in the trappings of power. Your eyes are drawn to a small, unassuming, heavy oak door in the corner of the room. While the king is distracted by a game of chess, you slip through it. You are now inside the garderobe. The first sensation is the cold. The small chamber is built into the thickness of the castle's outer stone wall, and the chill of the stone is a constant presence. The second sensation is the draft. A steady, cool, and faintly foul-smelling breeze blows upwards from the hole in the seat, a constant reminder that you are perched directly over a long, open drop to the outside world. The room is tiny, a mere closet. The throne itself is a simple bench of dark, polished oak built against the outer wall, with a keyhole-shaped opening cut into it. The wood has been worn smooth by years of use. There is no flushing mechanism, no water tank, only the simple, elegant solution of gravity. You cautiously lift the wooden lid and peer down into the darkness. You see the top of the chute, a round, stone-lined tunnel descending into blackness. The first few feet of the shaft have been coated with a smooth lime plaster. This is a practical measure you understand immediately. It prevents waste from getting stuck near the top, ensuring a swift and clean drop. The engineering is brutally simple and effective. Beside the seat is a large, handsome wicker basket. Curious, you look inside. It is not filled with anything you would recognize as toilet paper. Instead, it is piled high with handfuls of soft, fresh moss and a large collection of clean, torn scraps of old linen. The linen is old and worn, perhaps from a discarded undertunic or a set of bedsheets, but it is soft to the touch. This is the king's personal supply of wiping material, a level of comfort far beyond the handful of hay or smooth leaves you might use yourself in the village privy pit. You try to gauge the path of the chute, to see if it is a straight drop to the moat below. You hold a small metal button from your tunic over the hole and let it go, listening intently. You hear it strike the side of the stone shaft once, then again a moment later, a distinct change in angle. The chute is not straight. It has a bend in it. This is a new and unwelcome complication. Castle architects and historians still debate the reason for this common design feature. Was it a clever built-in defensive measure? An S-bend deliberately intended to make it impossible for a besieging enemy to shoot a flaming arrow or a crossbow bolt up through the privy shaft and into the heart of the castle? Or was it a simpler structural necessity, a way to build the chute around a window embrasure or a fireplace flue on a lower floor without compromising the integrity of the great stone wall? For a defender, it is a clever design. For you, the attacker, it is a significant obstacle. You will not be able to simply climb straight up. You will have to navigate a difficult, angled passage in the dark. Your brief, dangerous inspection is over. You hear movement in the solar, and know you must not be discovered here. You slip back out of the garderobe, your heart pounding, your mind now filled with a precise, three-dimensional map of your target. Later that day, you return to your observation point outside the castle walls, looking up at the chute's exit with new eyes. You now know the layout of the room above it. You can visualize the length of the shaft, and you now understand that you must prepare for the bend in the tunnel. You study the stonework around the opening, planning your initial handholds for the climb. You are no longer just an assassin. You are a mountaineer preparing to conquer the world's most disgusting mountain. Your technical survey is complete. You know the history of the technology, the layout of the chamber, the materials used, the dimensions of the shaft, and the unexpected obstacle of the angled chute. The plan is no longer a dark fantasy. It is a concrete set of physical challenges to be overcome. The time for study and observation is over. Now you must turn your mind to action. You must gather the tools for the deed. The theory is complete, the architecture understood. All that remains before you can truly begin your final preparations is one last, grim piece of reconnaissance. You must survey your point of entry. You must get close to the base of the guardrobe shaft and examine the foul gateway to your ambition. You choose a quiet, overcast afternoon, a day when most of the castle's inhabitants are occupied indoors. You make your way not to the grand gatehouse, but around the castle's perimeter through the thick, damp woods that grow near the outer walls. You move silently, like a hunter, until you reach the section of the great stone wall directly beneath the king's private solar. And there it is, the end of the chute and the beginning of your journey. The guardrobe does not empty onto dry land. It empties, as so many do, directly into the castle moat. But this is not the clear, romantic body of water from the songs and poems. The moat is a stagnant, murky, green-brown ditch. its surface thick with scum and algae. It is the castle's dumping ground, a convenient, watery trash pit. The smell that rises from it on this damp afternoon is one of deep, ancient rot of decaying vegetation, of old bones from the castle kitchens, and the unmistakable sour tang of human waste. You find the specific spot. A dark, ugly stain, like a permanent foul waterfall, streaks the gray stone of the castle wall from a point high above, leading down to a small, dark arched opening just above the waterline. This is the exit of the king's privy shaft. The air around it is thick with a cloud of buzzing, iridescent flies. The water of the moat directly beneath it is darker and more troubled than anywhere else. This is your doorway. In some castles, the chutes empty not into a moat, but into a dry cesspit, a simple, stone-lined pit dug at the base of the wall. You consider which would be worse. The moat offers a watery, diluted filth, but also the risk of drowning. The cesspit offers a semi-solid, concentrated horror, a deep pit of decomposing waste that you would have to wade through. You decide the moat is the lesser of two evils. As you stand there, contemplating the sheer, unimaginable foulness of your intended path, you think of the poor souls for whom this kind of filth is a profession. You have heard of the gong farmers, the men hired once every few years to empty a full cesspit. It is a job so notoriously vile, so offensive to the senses, that by law it can only be performed in the dead of night, lest the stench sicken the entire neighborhood. They arrive with carts and buckets, and over several nights dredge out the accumulated human waste of years, a task that pays them a handsome sum, the high price for briefly living and working in a man-made hell. The night soil they cart away, is then sold to local farmers as a potent, if pungent, fertilizer for their fields. You look at the dark liquid and green scum of the moat, and you wonder what effect this constant stream of waste has on the world around it. Environmental archaeologists who study medieval waste management debate the true ecological impact of these systems. Did the waste from a single castle create a massive localized pollution zone, a dead spot that killed the fish and fouled the water from miles downstream? Or was the volume of waste from a few hundred inhabitants when compared to the vastness of the surrounding wetlands and rivers a relatively minor problem, a stream of filth that was quickly diluted and absorbed by the hungry, unceasing processes of nature? You do not care about the long-term ecological impact. You only care about the short-term tactical realities. From your hiding place in the reeds, you study the opening. It is dark and forbidding, but it is large enough. A man could squeeze through it. The stone around it is slick with slime, but there appear to be crevices that could serve as handholds. Your reconnaissance is now, finally and truly complete. You have examined the plan from every angle. You know the king's routine. You know the layout of the chamber above. You know the length and shape of the shaft. And now you know the nature of the foul doorway you must pass through to begin your ascent. There are no more questions to be answered, no more plans to be drawn. The time for thinking, observing, and studying is over. You have looked upon the face of your disgusting, chosen path, and you have not flinched. Your resolve is harder than the stone of the castle wall. You retreat from the stinking moat, the image of the dark opening burned into your mind. Your mind now turns from the how and the where to the what with. It is time to gather your tools. Your reconnaissance is complete. The path is known. The target is understood. The time for observation is over, and the time for acquisition begins. Your mind, which has been working as a spy and a surveyor, must now become that of a quartermaster, assembling the few crucial tools required for your grim pilgrimage into the castle's underbelly. This work is done in secret, in the quiet, late hours of the night in your own lodgings, when the world is asleep and only your own quiet, treasonous thoughts are awake. First, you require a tool for stealth. You must be a shadow on your approach to the castle moat. You procure a cloak of heavy, dark wool. It is dyed a deep, muddy brown, a color that will dissolve into the darkness of a moonless night. It is a simple garment, but it will be essential, not only to hide your form, but also to later conceal the incredible filth you will acquire during your climb. It is your cloak of invisibility. Second, you require a tool for the ascent. The garderobe shaft is high, and its inner walls are sure to be slick with slime. You need a rope, a strong one. In your world, a good rope is not a cheap or common item. It is a piece of expert craft, a valuable and life-saving tool. You obtain a length of it, perhaps from a shipment at the docks for a few precious coins, or by stealing it from a construction site in the dead of night. It is thick and coarse, expertly woven from hundreds of strong hemp fibers. You spend an entire afternoon testing it, tying one end to a strong tree branch and putting your full weight on it again and again, checking every inch for any sign of fraying or weakness. Your life will hang from this rope. With it, you acquire a simple three-pronged grappling hook, purchased from the castle blacksmith under the false pretext that you need it for dragging logs from the river. Third and last, you require the tool for the deed itself. This requires careful consideration. A sword is too long and unwieldy for the cramped confines of the privy shaft. An axe is absurd. Your weapon must be personal, short, and designed for a single upward piercing thrust. You need a dagger. You possess a simple knife for eating and daily tasks, but this is not sufficient. You need a weapon. You acquire a proper dagger, perhaps the kind they call a rondel dagger. It is a brutally simple and effective design. The blade is long, stiff, and needle-sharp at its point, designed not for slashing, but for piercing, for finding the gaps in a suit of armor, or for finding a soft belly in the dark. Its hilt is simple, with two round guards to keep your hand from slipping on the grip when it is slick with blood. It is a tool made for one purpose, and you intend to use it for that purpose. In the quiet of your room, by the light of a single smoky candle, you spend hours sharpening the dagger on a whetstone. The rhythmic scraping sound is the only noise in the room. Scrape, scrape. You are not just sharpening a blade. You are focusing your hatred, honing your intent into a single razor-sharp point. You look at the simple grim tools laid out before you on a piece of cloth, the dark cloak, the coiled hemp rope, the grappling hook, the gleaming, sharpened dagger. They are the instruments of your treason. Historians and material culture experts debate the psychology of an assassin's chosen instruments. Were tools like these selected for pure, cold function and disposability? Or did a person on such a dark errand sometimes choose or modify weapons that held a personal or symbolic significance? Dagger, for instance, that was inherited from a wronged father, or one stolen from a rival, turning the grim act of murder into a deeply personal ritual of vengeance. Looking at the cold, impersonal steel of your own blade, you feel it is simply the latter. It is the right tool for an ugly, necessary job. You make your final preparations. You pack the rope and hook into a simple leather satchel. You create a special sheath for the dagger that can be tied to your leg, to keep it from getting lost in the filth of the climb. And you prepare one last crucial piece of equipment, a thick linen rag, which you will soak in cheap, strong vinegar just before you begin. This you will tie over your nose and mouth. It will not defeat the stench of the privy shaft, you know, but you pray it will make it survivable. A small pocket of sharp, clean air in a world of absolute foulness. The kit is complete. It is a small, grim collection of objects, each one chosen with careful, methodical purpose. You hide the satchel away, under a loose floorboard where no one will find it. All the physical preparations are now finished. You have your intelligence. You have your plan. You have your tools. You are a coiled spring, awaiting predator. All that is left now is to wait for the perfect moment to strike, for the perfect night to conceal your sin. Your tools are hidden. Your plan is finalized. Your resolve is absolute. And now begins the most agonizing phase of your entire endeavor, the waiting. Treason, you learn, is an act composed of 1% violent action and 99% excruciating, patient stillness. You cannot move on an ordinary night. The conditions must be perfect, a rare and holy trinity of opportunity, darkness, and distraction. You become a reluctant student of the heavens. Your life, which was once governed by the sun and the church bell, is now governed by the moon. Each night, you watch its slow, celestial dance. A week of a bright, full moon is a week of torment for you. Its brilliant, silvery light illuminates the castle grounds almost as brightly as day, rendering the moat and the outer walls a naked, exposed stage. To attempt a crossing on such a night would be suicide. A sentry on the battlements would spot your silhouette from 100 paces away. On these bright, clear nights, it feels as though the heavens themselves are protecting the king, thwarting you with their purity. A still, quiet, moonless night is also too risky. In the profound silence, every sound would be magnified, every movement a potential betrayal. The splash you would make entering the moat, the scrape of your boots against the stone wall, the sound of your own heavy breathing, all would travel through the quiet air like a shout, a clear alarm for any watchful guard. You need more than just darkness. You need chaos. You need a cloak woven from the very elements. You begin to pray not for sunshine, but for a storm. A night of howling wind and driving rain would be your greatest ally. The wind would be a symphony of distraction, its mournful cry swallowing the sound of your movements. The rain would be a veil, reducing visibility to mere feet and forcing the guards on the walls to huddle deep in the shelter of their watchtowers, their attention dulled by the cold and the wet. The perfect night for your deed is the worst possible night for anyone else. As you wait, watching the sky day after day, you interpret the weather through the lens of your own dark quest. A week of calm, clear skies feels like a divine rebuke. A sudden, unexpected sunbreak on a cloudy day feels like God is mocking you. But then, one afternoon, the wind shifts. It begins to blow from the west, and it carries a new smell, a damp, earthy scent of rain on dry ground. You look to the horizon and see a low, bruised, leaden bank of clouds gathering. You feel a surge of grim, terrible joy. The heavens are finally answering your prayer. You see the coming storm not as a meteorological event, but as a sign of divine approval, a God-given cloak for the sin you are about to commit. That same afternoon, you hear the king's herald in the town square announce that a great feast will be held at the castle in 2 days. Time to celebrate a minor saint's day. The pieces are aligning. The opportunity and the weather are converging. On the day of the feast, you walk to your observation point in the woods one last time, looking at the castle. You see the guards on the walls, pacing their lonely circuits. You see the wide, flat, open ground that surrounds the moat, an expanse of bare earth and short grass. You realize, with a new clarity, that the castle's greatest defense is not its high stone walls or its iron-bound gate. It is this empty space, this killing ground. Military historians and tacticians often note that this was the most difficult obstacle for any besieging army to overcome. To be caught in that open space, with nowhere to hide, was to be at the complete mercy of the archers on the walls. This is why the weather is not just a helpful variable for you. It is the single most important component of your entire strategy. The storm is the only thing that can make that open ground survivable. As evening approaches, your waiting is over. The sky is a dark, churning ceiling of gray. The wind is now a steady, moaning presence, rattling the shutters on your own small dwelling. The feast at the castle has begun. You can imagine the noise, the music, the vast quantities of wine being consumed. And as you make your final preparations, the first, fat drops of rain begin to fall. A cold, electric calm settles over you. You retrieve your satchel of tools from its hiding place. You check the knots on your rope one last time. You run your thumb along the razor-sharp edge of your dagger. You soak the linen rag in strong vinegar, the sharp scent a final, bracing shock to your senses. You tie it around your face, covering your nose and mouth. The rain is coming down harder now, a steady, hissing downpour. The wind howls around the corners of the houses. It is a terrible night, a night for sensible folk to huddle close to their fires. It is your perfect night. You pull your dark, heavy cloak around you, step out into the turbulent, black, and beautifully violent weather, and melt into the shadows. The infiltration has begun. The storm is your accomplice, a roaring, chaotic cloak for your treason. The wind howls, snatching the sound of your movements from the air, and the driving rain plasters your dark woolen cloak to your body, making you one with the shadows. You move quickly through the wet darkness, your path illuminated by brief, startling flashes of lightning. You reach the edge of the castle moat. It is no longer a stagnant, green pond, but a churning, choppy surface, its foulness stirred up by the relentless rain. There is no time for hesitation. You slip into the water. The cold is a shocking, physical blow, driving the air from your lungs. The stench is immediate and overwhelming, the smell of stagnant water and a century of accumulated waste. You begin to swim, your movements slow and silent, your satchel of tools held high. The bottom is a soft, deep sludge that sucks at your feet, and you feel unseen, slimy things brush against your legs in the murky darkness. You fight back a wave of revulsion and push forward until your hands touch the cold, hard stone of the castle wall. You are here, at the base of the solar garderobe. The dark, arched opening is just above the churning waterline, a black mouth breathing a steady, foul miasma. You pull the vinegar-soaked rag tighter over your nose and mouth. The sharp, clean scent of the vinegar is a pathetic, but necessary, defense against the suffocating stench you are about to enter. You take the grappling hook and rope from your satchel. In a flash of lightning, you see your target, a projecting stone just above the opening. You swing the hook once, twice, and on the third try, it catches with a satisfying, soft thud. You pull on the rope, testing it with your full body weight. It holds. Your escape from the moat has been secured. Now for the ascent. You pull yourself up and into the opening of the privy shaft. The world outside, the stormy, rain-swept night, disappears. You are now in a new world, a vertical tunnel of absolute blackness and unimaginable filth. The climb begins. Your hands search for purchase on the stone walls. They are not dry. They are coated in a thick, cold, greasy slime that has been building up for decades. Your fingers slip, and you have to rely on the raw strength of your arms, pulling yourself up the rope, your feet scrabbling for holds on the slippery stone. Your clean clothes are instantly saturated with a foulness that will never truly wash out. The stench is a physical presence, so thick you can almost chew it. The vinegar rag helps, but only by providing a different, sharp scent to focus on. Underneath it, the overwhelming odor of the pit is a constant, nauseating assault, and you are not alone in the shaft. You hear the frantic, high-pitched squeaking of rats above and below you. You feel their small, quick bodies scuttling over your hands and shoulders in the darkness as they flee from your intrusion. You grit your teeth and continue to climb. The shaft acts as a bizarre acoustic tube, a listening pipe into the heart of the castle. In the brief moments when the wind outside dies down, you can hear faint sounds from the privy chamber far above. A distant burst of laughter, the sound of a door opening and closing. The shaft is feeding you snippets of information, but you know it is a two-way conduit. Any dislodged stone, any loud scrape of your boot, could echo upwards and betray your presence. You move with the slowness and care of a spider on a wet web. As you search for a handhold, your fingers close around something small, hard, and out of place, wedged in a thick layer of grime. It feels like a metal button, or perhaps a coin. Forensic archaeologists examining the contents of medieval cesspits have found a treasure trove of such lost items. They find not just waste, but countless everyday objects accidentally dropped down the garderobe shaft. Silver coins, jeweled rings, small daggers, keys to private chests. Each object is a tiny, unintentional link to the secret lives in the chambers far above. You have no time for archaeology. You ignore the object and continue your ascent. You reach the angled bend you saw from the inside. The climb becomes even more difficult, forcing you to contort your body, to brace your back against one wall while your feet seek purchase on the other. For a terrifying moment, your foot slips on a patch of slime, and you dangle from the rope, your heart hammering against your ribs. But you find a new hold, your resolve stronger than your fear, and you push onwards and upwards. After what feels like an eternity of struggle in the stinking vertical darkness, your outstretched hand touches something new. It is not cold, slick stone. It is dry, rough wood. You have reached the top. You have made it to the wooden platform that forms the privy seat itself. You have done it. You have completed the most disgusting, most perilous part of your journey. You are now in position, a hidden creature of the filth, coiled in the cramped darkness just inches beneath the king's private throne. The sounds of the feast from the nearby great hall are a faint, muffled rumble. You are inside. Now, a different kind of ordeal begins. The long, silent, and foul-smelling wait. You settle into your hiding place, and the physical ordeal of the climb is immediately replaced by the psychological torture of the wait. You have found a small, projecting stone in the wall of the shaft, a tiny ledge just large enough to brace your feet on, a few feet below the wooden toilet seat. You are crouched in a space no bigger than a coffin, your knees pressed against your chest, your back scraping against the cold, slick slime of the opposite wall. Here, in this cramped, foul-smelling, and utterly black tomb, you must wait. The world is reduced to three senses: touch, hearing, and the all-consuming, suffocating sense of smell. The sharp scent of the vinegar-soaked rag over your face has become a part of you, but it does little to mask the deep, foundational stench of the pit. It is the air you breathe now, and you find, to your disgust, that your body is beginning to accept it as normal. You feel a slow, steady drip of some vile, cold liquid from above, landing on your shoulder with a maddening, unpredictable rhythm. Drip, 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 drip. Each drop is a small, cold shock. Your sight is useless. It is a perfect, featureless, absolute blackness. And in this total darkness, time begins to warp and dissolve. Without the sun, without a candle, without any visual cues, your sense of time becomes unmoored. Minutes stretch into what feel like hours. Hours could be passing, or it could be mere moments. The only rhythm is the anxious, muffled thud of your own heart against your ribs and the maddeningly slow drip of water from above. This sensory deprivation is a quiet form of torment, a state where your own mind, starved of input, can begin to play tricks on you. Your hearing, however, becomes preternaturally sharp. You are a blind creature now, and your ears are your eyes. The shaft is a perfect acoustic tube, carrying sounds down to you from the world above. You can hear the distant, muffled roar of the feast still raging in the great hall. You can hear the storm outside, the howl of the wind and the drumming of the rain against the castle walls. And you thank God for this chaotic symphony that is covering your own presence. Most importantly, you can hear every sound from the privy chamber just above you. The heavy oak door opens and closes several times. Each time, your body tenses, your hand gripping the hilt of your dagger. The first time, you hear the light footsteps and quiet humming of a servant, quickly using the facility. A false alarm. Later, you hear two men enter, their voices low and conspiratorial as they share a piece of court gossip. Their words float down to you, secrets meant for no one, now delivered directly to you in your pit of filth. They leave, and the wait continues. Your adrenaline spikes and recedes with each visitor, leaving you feeling more drained and tense than before. You force yourself into a state of cold, coiled readiness. You shift your weight silently, fighting off the painful cramps that are beginning to seize your muscles from being held in one unnatural position for so long. You practice drawing your dagger from its sheath with a slow, silent motion. Your mind must be a weapon, as sharp and as ready as the blade itself. Historians who study the psychology of assassins and soldiers often note the unique mental state required during this waiting phase. Is it a period of unbearable, high-strung nervous tension, where every passing second increases the risk of discovery and failure? Or does a kind of professional, detached calm take over, where the mind empties itself of all fear and all emotion, and focuses with absolute, diamond-hard clarity on the single, mechanical task that lies ahead? For you, huddled in the reeking darkness, it is a strange and exhausting oscillation between the two. One moment, your heart is hammering with the terror of being discovered. The next, a cold, predatory calm settles over you, and you feel nothing but the weight of the dagger in your hand and the absolute certainty of your purpose. After what feels like an entire lifetime spent in this vertical grave, you hear a new sound from the solar outside the privy door. It is the king's voice, a loud, booming laugh, slurred with wine. You hear his distinct, heavy, confident footstep approaching. You hear the softer voice of his most trusted courtier, the groom of the stool, saying, "I shall wait for you outside the door, your majesty." This is it. The privy door creaks open. A sliver of warm yellow candlelight briefly illuminates the top of your shaft before it is blocked by the dark shape of the king's body entering the small chamber. The door closes, plunging you back into absolute blackness. You hear the rustle of his heavy, fur-lined robes, the soft thud as he lowers the wooden toilet lid, and then the familiar, heavy sigh of a man settling himself onto the seat. The wait is over. Your target has arrived. He is alone. He is unsuspecting, and he is perfectly positioned just inches above your head. The moment you have risked everything for is here. The moment is here. The world, which for hours has been a vast, timeless, and stinking darkness, now shrinks to the dimensions of the small wooden hole just above your head. Every sound from the privy chamber is magnified, intimate, and terrifyingly close. You hear the heavy sigh of the king as he settles his weight onto the seat. You hear the rustle of his heavy velvet robes, the soft clink of a buckle. He is so close you can almost feel the warmth of his body through the thick oak planks. You are frozen in your crouched position, a creature of the filth, holding your breath. Your heart is a frantic drum against your ribs, a sound you are sure he must be able to hear. You press yourself against the cold, slimy wall of the shaft, trying to make yourself smaller, trying to merge with the darkness. You think of the man above you. This is not just any lord. This is King Edmund, the man they are starting to call Ironside because of his legendary prowess in battle, his tireless, fierce resistance against the Danish armies of Canute the Great. You have seen this man on a battlefield, encased in shining mail, his voice a roar that could rally 1,000 faltering men. You have seen him in the great hall, dispensing justice with a wave of his hand, his presence so powerful it seemed to suck the very air from the room. He is a warrior king, a figure of mythic proportions. And here he is, in the dark, in his private chamber, alone and unsuspecting. The privy, you realize, is the great and humble equalizer. It strips away all the trappings of power. In this small, cold room, the king is not a king. He is not Ironside. He is simply a man, subject to the same mundane, biological needs as the lowliest peasant in his kingdom. For all his divine right, for all his armed guards and his stone walls, there is this one moment in his day when he must be completely, utterly, and vulnerably human. This is the moment you have gambled everything to share with him. Your hand rests on the cold, hard grip of your dagger. Your nerve threatens to fail you. The sheer, audacious blasphemy of what you are about to do washes over you. This is regicide. This is the murder of God's anointed ruler. But then you think of your own grievances, of the stolen lands, of the kingdom bleeding under his poor leadership. Your resolve hardens again into a cold, sharp point. You are about to turn a whispered, foul story into a historical fact. You know that the chroniclers who will write of this night, the monks in their quiet scriptoriums, will tell conflicting tales. Some, writing in monasteries loyal to Edmund's memory, will claim he died suddenly of a sickness, or that his old battle wounds finally took him. They will give him a clean and honorable end. But others, perhaps writing in the new court of his great rival Canute, will be eager to spread a different story. They will whisper of a shameful, undignified death, of a treacherous assassin hiding in the filth. You realize in this moment that you are not just killing a man. You are creating a history. You are writing the first bloody draft, and the version that survives for future generations will depend entirely on who wins the war and who holds the pen. You slowly, silently begin to get into position. You shift your weight on the narrow ledge, your muscles screaming in protest after being held in one cramped posture for so long. You draw your rondel dagger from its sheath. The blade makes no sound as it parts the thick, foul air. It feels like an extension of your own arm, a cold, sharp finger of murderous intent. With your free hand, you reach up and gently touch the underside of the wooden toilet seat. You use it to orient yourself in the absolute blackness. You can feel the slight vibration as the king shifts his weight above you. You know exactly where you are. You know exactly where he is. Your target is the soft, unprotected flesh that is now presented to the dark opening. Your strike must be upward, swift, and delivered with all the strength you can muster. There will be no second chance. If you miss, or if your blow is not fatal, his screams will bring the entire castle guard down upon you. You will die in this stinking shaft, your treason a miserable failure. The tension is a physical thing, a tightening in your chest, a roaring in your ears that threatens to drown out the sounds from above. You take one last, slow, silent breath through the vinegar-soaked rag, steadying your arm, focusing your entire being, all your hatred and all your hope into the single, sharp point of your dagger. You hear the king sigh again, a sound of release. This is the moment, the perfect, horrible, and unguarded opportunity. You raise the dagger. You do not hesitate. To hesitate is to fail. You have waited and planned for this single, perfect moment of vulnerability, and your body acts with a cold, vicious efficiency that surprises even you. All your hatred, all your resentment, all the coiled energy from the long, cramped wait is channeled into a single upward, explosive movement. You lunge upwards with all the force you can muster. The needle-sharp point of your rondel dagger strikes the underside of the oak toilet seat. For a heart-stopping fraction of a second, it meets resistance. Then, with a splintering crack, the blade punches through the wood. Immediately after, it meets the soft, yielding, and utterly unprepared flesh of the king. You push the blade deep, a single, brutal, and fatal thrust from the world of filth into the world of power. From above, you hear a sound you will never forget. It is not a kingly roar or a warrior's cry. It is a sharp, high-pitched, almost animalistic grunt of pure, shocked agony. It is a sound of profound and sudden violation. You do not relent. The old stories of Edmund Ironside's demise, the very tales that inspired this foul plan, whisper that the assassin struck twice to be certain. You obey the lesson of history. You pull the blade back, and with a second, equally powerful thrust, you drive it home again, ensuring the deed is done. The reaction from above is now a chaos of sound. You hear a terrible, wet, choking groan. You hear the clatter of a metal wine goblet falling to the stone floor. You hear the king's heavy body slump against the wall of the small chamber. And then you hear the panicked voice of the groom of the stool from outside the privy door. "Your Majesty? My lord, are you well?" What was that sound? There is no coherent reply, only a low, agonized moan. The groom's voice rises in panic and confusion. "Your Majesty, answer me." He begins to pound on the thick locked oak door. The immediate chaos you had hoped for has begun. No one understands what has happened. The king is alone in a locked room, dying, and the cause of his agony is a complete and utter mystery to the men just a few feet away. This confusion is your shield. This is your chance. You know the wounds you inflicted are fatal, but you wonder, in a fleeting clinical moment, how he will actually die. Later forensic analysis, if such a thing were possible, might debate the precise cause of death. Was it the immediate, catastrophic internal bleeding from too deep wounds to the bowels and lower organs? A swift death measured in minutes? Or would it be the slower, more disgusting, and more agonizing death that would come in the days? A header raging infection of the gut peritonitis caused by a blade that was inevitably coated in the indescribable filth of the privy shaft. In your single act, you have delivered both a blade and a poison. The king is doomed either way. A new, warm shower begins to rain down on you from the hole above. A final, grim indignity that coats you in the king's own lifeblood. The sounds from the solar outside the privy door are growing more frantic. You hear the groom of the stool shouting for the guards. You hear the splintering crash of a heavy piece of furniture being used as a battering ram against the privy door. Your window of escape is closing with every passing second. The cold professional calm that sustained you through the wait evaporates, replaced by the hot, primal, animal urge to flee. Your mission is accomplished. The king is dead or dying. The great Edmund Ironside has been brought down not by a Danish axe in the heat of battle, but by a knife from the darkness of his own toilet. You have committed the ultimate, most undignified treason. Now you must vanish. You turn your body in the impossibly cramped, stinking shaft, ignoring the new, vile rain from above. Your only thought is of the rope, the moat, and the concealing darkness of the storm. You begin your desperate, frantic scramble downwards, back into the filth, back towards the stormy night that has been your accomplice. Your part in this story is over. All that is left is to survive its aftermath. There is no time for thought, no time for anything but the primal animal instinct to flee. Above you, you hear the final splintering crash as the privy door gives way. You hear the first horrified shouts from the solar as the groom of the stool and the guards see the king's slumped, bloody body. That is your cue. You do not climb down the shaft. You fall. It is a controlled, scraping, and disgusting slide. You let the coarse hemp rope slide through your hands, the friction burning your palms even through the layers of slime. Your body slams against the angled bend in the chute, the impact knocking the wind from you, and you scramble to find your footing in the pitch darkness. The descent is a chaotic, vertical tumble through filth, your only thought to get down, to get out, to get away. You splash out of the opening at the bottom of the shaft and into the churning black water of the moat. The shock of the cold is immense, but it is a cleansing shock. It washes the worst of the filth from your face and clothes, and for a glorious second, it clears your head. You do not linger. You swim with powerful, silent strokes across the moat, away from the castle wall, your satchel with the now useless rope and hook still tied to you. As you reach the far bank, you look back at the castle. It is no longer a sleeping stone giant. It is a kicked hornet's nest, exploding into panicked life. Torches have appeared in the high windows of the solar. You see them moving rapidly through the castle's corridors, their lights creating frantic, dancing shadows. Then you hear it, the deep, brazen call of an alarm horn, its mournful, urgent note cutting through the howl of the storm. The entire fortress is being razed. You see the torches multiply along the battlements as guards are roused from their beds and sent to their posts. The castle is in the process of locking down. Historians of medieval security and espionage debate how quickly a fortress like this could truly be sealed. Could the alarm be raised, the sentries alerted, the great portcullis dropped, and every gate and postern barred in a matter of minutes? Or was the process far more chaotic and slow, hampered by the darkness, the storm, the vast size of the castle, and the initial confusion of the guards allowing a swift and determined intruder a precious window of opportunity to escape the tightening net? You are gambling your life on the latter. You crawl out of the moat, your clothes heavy with foul water, and begin the most dangerous part of your escape, the dash across the open killing ground. This flat, muddy expanse between the moat and the safety of the woods is completely exposed. Your only cover is the storm itself. You run, half crouched, a fleeing shadow in the lashing rain. The wind howls in your ears, a beautiful, deafening sound that masks your frantic footsteps. Flashes of lightning illuminate the scene in brief, stark tableaus, and in those moments you flatten yourself to the ground, praying you are not seen by an archer on the wall. You are terrified of running into a patrol of men-at-arms, sent out from the main sally port to sweep the grounds. You are also wary of traps. You know that the guards sometimes scatter caltrops small, vicious, four-pointed iron spikes designed to always land with one point facing up in the grass near the walls to injure charging attackers or lame their horses. Every step in the dark on this muddy field is a gamble against a hidden, crippling pain. Your lungs are burning, your legs are heavy, but you force yourself on, driven by pure adrenaline and terror. The dark, welcoming line of the woods seems impossibly far away, but you press on and finally, after what feels like an eternity spent in the open, you reach the tree line. You plunge into the deep, woody darkness of the forest, not stopping until you are 100 paces in. You collapse behind the trunk of a massive oak tree, your body shaking uncontrollably, your lungs heaving as you gasp for air. You risk one last look back at the castle. It is now fully awake, a swarm of angry, torch-lit fireflies. You can see the main gate being closed, and then you hear the deep, groaning clang of the great iron portcullis as it drops into place, its teeth biting into the ground. The castle is sealed. You made it out. You made it out just in time. You are safe, for now. The storm and the forest are your sanctuary. You have committed the ultimate crime, the murder of a king, and you have, against all odds, escaped his fortress. You are now a ghost in your own land, a regicide, a man with no name, no home, and no future. Your old life, the life of the disgruntled courtier, is over, drowned in the filth of the privy shaft. A new, far more dangerous life as a fugitive has just begun, and you must now contemplate the chaos you have unleashed upon the kingdom you claimed you wanted to save. You are a ghost in your own kingdom. The storm that cloaked your escape has passed, but you remain cloaked in the shadows of the forest, a fugitive from the world you sought to change. You travel only at night, navigating by the stars you once watched while waiting for this very moment. By day, you sleep in abandoned shepherds' huts or deep in thickets of gorse, starting at every sound, every snapping twig, every distant bark of a dog. You live on foraged berries and the occasional rabbit caught with a crude snare. Your old life, the life of a courtier with lands and a name, is as dead as the king you murdered. After a week of this spectral existence, you are near a main road, hiding in the trees, when you get your first news of the world you left behind. You overhear two merchants, resting their horses, speaking of the great events at court. Their voices carry on the still air. "A terrible tragedy," says the first. "For the king to be struck down in his prime by such a sudden, violent flux of the bowels. The physicians could do nothing. The second merchant leans closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. A flux? I heard a different tale from a man at arms. He said there was no sickness. He said the king's wine tasted strange that night, and that the royal physician suspects a subtle poison, a poison that mimics a natural illness. You listen, a cold, grim satisfaction spreading through you. The truth of your deed is buried, as you knew it would be, under a mountain of rumor and misinformation. In your world, without newspapers or royal proclamations that can reach every corner of the land, news travels at the speed of a walking man, and it warps and changes with every retelling. The king's death is not yet a fact. It is a collection of competing stories, a canvas for every man's fears and suspicions. Days later, you risk sneaking into the outskirts of a small village to listen to a herald from the court read a formal proclamation. The official story, the one the king's council is desperately trying to promote to prevent a panic, is that King Edmund died of a sudden natural illness. A tragic act of God. The kingdom is to mourn and to remain loyal to his young sons. But you can feel that this story is not holding. The kingdom is a ship that has lost its captain in a storm, and it is beginning to break apart. In the taverns and on the roads, you hear the real news. The king's great rival, the powerful Danish warlord Canute, has declared Edmund's death to be a sign of God's judgment. He is marching his armies, claiming the throne is now his by right of strength and divine will. The great lords of the realm are being forced to choose sides. Some remain loyal to Edmund's line, but many others, seeing a power vacuum and fearing a long and bloody civil war, are flocking to Sinat's banner, seeing in him a stronger, more decisive leader. The chaos you intended to prevent, you have instead unleashed in full. And then, as the weeks pass, a new story begins to circulate. It is not the official story of sickness, nor the high-minded rumor of poison. It is a foul, gutter story, a piece of grim, undignified gossip, so bizarre it can only be true. It is a story carried by minstrels, who love a shocking tale, and by common soldiers who appreciate its crude, earthly humor. It is the story of the king being stabbed from beneath, while sitting on his own privy. It is a surreal, out-of-body experience to hear your own secret, monstrous act told back to you as a piece of fireside entertainment. You listen as a group of travelers laugh at the tale, at the image of the great King Ironside being brought low in such a shameful, ridiculous manner. Your act of high political treason has been transformed into a crude, popular joke. As you sit by your small, hidden fire in the woods, you reflect on the ultimate outcome of your deed. You set out to save the kingdom from a weak king by plunging it into the chaos of a succession crisis. But now, it seems that chaos is resolving itself. Canute, the great enemy, is poised to take the throne, and the stories say that he will unite the Danish and English lands into a single powerful empire. Historians and political scientists who study state formation debate this very point. Are assassinations like the one you committed purely destabilizing acts of terror that lead only to ruin? Or do they sometimes function as a crude but effective reset button, tragically but necessarily removing an ineffectual ruler to make way for a more competent one who can ultimately forge a stronger, more stable realm? You do not know the answer. You do not know if you are a traitor who doomed the kingdom, or a bloody, unwitting kingmaker who saved it. The grand political consequences are a riddle for another time. Your own personal consequence is much clearer. You are an exile, a nameless man who must forever look over his shoulder. You have traded your name, your lands, and your immortal soul for a single upward thrust of a dagger in the dark. Years pass. Your life as a fugitive slowly, cautiously, transforms into a life of quiet, anonymous exile in a foreign land. Your hair grows gray, your back stoops with age, and the face that stares back at you from a polished shield or a still pond is that of a stranger. The man who was once a courtier, a nobleman with lands and a name, is gone forever. You are over. You are a ghost. News from the kingdom you abandoned arrives infrequently, carried by merchants and pilgrims. It is the news of a world that moved on without you, a world that was irrevocably shaped by your single terrible act. King Canute the Great, the Danish rival you once saw as a foreign invader, has become the undisputed king of all England. His reign, you hear, has been a long one, marked not by the chaos you feared, but by a surprising degree of peace and stability. He has united the English and Danish realms, and his rule is said to be firm but just. King Edmund's young sons, the rightful heirs you thought you might be fighting for, were sent into exile long ago, their claims forgotten. The kingdom you knew is gone, replaced by something new, something stronger. On long, quiet nights, as you sit by a lonely fire, you find yourself lost in the great, unanswerable question that has haunted your entire adult life. Historians of a future age who grapple with what-ifs will debate this very point. What if Edmund had lived? What if your nerve had failed you in that filthy shaft? Would Edmund have eventually defeated Canute and ruled as a great English hero? Or would his reign have been one of endless, draining warfare, a bloody stalemate that would have bled the kingdom dry and torn it apart? Did your act of ultimate treason, in its own horrific and unforeseen way, save the country from a far worse fate by allowing a stronger ruler to take the throne? You do not know if you are the man who broke the kingdom, or the man who, by breaking it, allowed it to be forged into something better. You are a traitor who may have accidentally become a patriot. The irony is a constant, quiet companion. You think of your own legacy. Your name has been struck from the records. Your family's lands were forfeited to the crown generations ago. You have been subjected to a kind of unofficial damnatio memoria, the damnation of memory. In the official chronicles of the reign of King Canute, you do not exist. But you know that in the unofficial histories, in the folktales and the scandalous whispers of the common people, you are immortal. You are not remembered by name. You are simply the assassin. You are the faceless, nameless villain in the most undignified tale a kingdom has ever told about its king. Your legacy is not that of a political actor with motives and grievances. Your legacy is to be a punchline, a boogeyman, a creature of the sewer. You are forever the man in the privy. It is a strange and bitter form of immortality. Sometimes, in the dead of night, the sensory memory of the act returns to you with a shocking clarity. You can still feel the cold, slick slime of the garderobe walls. You can still smell the suffocating stench, a foulness so profound that even after all these years, it can make you gag. You can still feel the weight of the dagger in your hand, and the sickening, yielding resistance as you drove it home. The memory does not fade. It is a part of you, a private, filthy chamber in your own soul. You are an old man now. The burning hatred that drove you to commit an unforgivable sin has long since cooled, leaving only the gray ash of a complex, weary regret. You have become a footnote in a history you created but could never claim. You look at your own wrinkled hands, and you see not the hands of a nobleman or a killer, but simply the hands of an old man who holds the world's strangest and most terrible secret. And you realize, at peace with it. And so the story of the man in the shadows comes to its end. He fades into the quiet obscurity of history, his great, dark secret dissolving with him, leaving behind only a strange and lurid legend. Let the memory of his dark quest go now. Let the cold stone of the castle, the foul air of the privy shaft, and the weight of his treasonous dagger all drift away on the gentle tide of sleep. Your own world is a place of warmth and safety and simple peace. There are no kings to be slain, no desperate plots to be hatched. There is only the profound comfort of your own bed, the soft weight of your own blanket, and the easy, gentle rhythm of your own breathing. Allow the quiet of this moment to deepen. to settle over you like a soft, falling snow, blanketing all your thoughts, all your worries. There is nothing left to do but to rest, to surrender to the deep, calm, and welcoming silence of the night. End of script. Sweet dreams.